Hey, crazy ex-girlfriend fans, it is 2019. Happy New Year. Greg and Nathaniel are friends now. Rebekah needs to get laid, and cats are everywhere. We're going to talk all about it.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Are you blind when you're born?
We are opening with a song from the actual musical Cats today.
Rebekah would be very upset with it.
I'm very upset.
Very bored already.
There's no plot.
There is no plot, 100%. Agreed. We will get into it in a second. But hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the, I guess, winter premiere of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Our last now, I think we have about 8 more episodes.
Yeah, it's what is it? It's 9 now. So then
9.
probably about
9 more episodes,
9 more episodes left.
of the show. I am your host, Briana Phipps, and I am joined by both of my co-hosts this week.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Nino. I am back. It's been like 3 weeks, and I'm back. I'm sorry I was gone, but I'm excited to be here and talk about this episode. And you totally wrote the last episode, by the way. I wasn't here to talk about it, but I feel like you wrote that episode. Just saying.
I feel that you asked Nino how many episodes were left because it was a math question and he's Asian. I don't know if I have proof of this, but I feel like you didn't ask me. I know how many episodes are left.
Dude.
Tehran, I'm not going to call you. No, I'm going to call you out. I had to tell you what the lead character's name.
If we're not allowed to talk about women anymore, well, I feel like I can talk about anything. And that was a very funny part of the episode, is how certain people can say certain things and other people can't.
I like that lead.
Loved it.
I liked certain parts of this episode, and there was one part that I thought was very unneeded. We'll definitely get into it. But overall, what were your thoughts of?
I still think this is a good follow-up to, I think last episode was my favorite, so I was like in high hopes that this would continue to still be good, especially that Greg is back now. And I didn't mind it. I actually really liked the episode. There is that one part that I didn't like, and I feel like we might agree with this, because I think I heard you before we went on air. We'll see, though. But overall, I liked the episode.
I will say this. I like this show so much that even when the episodes aren't great, I still like it. And I'll tell you why. Because Rebekah reminds me of Brie. And it's like your spirit animal. Now, nothing like Brie, but everything like Brie's sense of humor. Does that make sense?
I could totally see that. Okay, 100%.
And every time they say something, I laugh thinking that you would laugh at what they said.
See, your personality's so big.
Yeah. Well, she's as like one of my favorite people. We always talk, and so when I watch the show, I watch it through the lens of your eyes. And so, for example, with this episode with the Cats thing, you're the only person on this panel that actually watched Cats, and I knew that coming into the panel, and I would know that you would get the subtle nuances of the cat stuff that maybe I wouldn't understand, but I understood it because I knew you would understand it, and that's just how I watch this show.
Yeah. So the overall theme of the show is cats. Which has been brought up several times this season alone, with Rebekah's distaste of the musical, which I said, I think in a previous episode, is kind of an ongoing joke in the theater community, is that a lot of people in the theater community hate this show, while fans, though, love it.
It's
one of the longest running musicals on Broadway, and it's now being made into another movie.
But in this
starring
instance,
Taylor Swift.
Hold on.
What? Wait, what?
It's a movie starring Taylor Swift. Say that part first. It just made me hate and love Cats so much more. But for this episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Cats was used as a metaphor of
Vagina.
pussy. Yeah.
Yep.
The concept of and
Her different stages of what was going on with her areas.
I don't know. How did you guys feel about the songs, with the cat songs?
They were, I mean, if you know the musical Cats, they were directly linked to that. 100%, and the costumes for it. So
sure, the costumes look very Cats. The songs, I didn't realize that they were the songs that they used in the musical Cats.
They aren't the actual songs, but they're themed after them. Yeah,
and it just kind of dragged for me.
Which is
why,
which is also the musical.
So long. It's just like I didn't need to keep.
You
saying
may
Cats.
have noticed that I think this is the first time, especially since season 1, definitely the first time that we haven't opened up with a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend song, and that is because for the first time ever, I was not able to find the music on CW's YouTube, on the internet in general.
That's what I told her.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Cats was like, no.
I haven't been able to find a reason as to why not, but I mean, very possible, and Spotify as well, and it's always up the day after on Spotify and YouTube, so I don't know.
That's interesting.
Cats didn't want the publicity. They're okay. They're fine.
But we'll get into the whole all the cats numbers a little later in our show when we do our song segment. But first, let's start off with Daryl and Burt. So this was kind of, for me, the throwaway storyline. But let's get into it and see what you guys think. So Daryl comes back to work. He does have his mustache. He has a little bit of a mustache now. We know he shaved it off in the last episode, but he's kind of starting to grow it back. And he walks in thinking that everyone's having a party for him, but really it's a party for Burt because Burt has given them everything they want in the office.
It's Burt's day.
It's Burt's day. And Nathaniel starts getting jealous.
Happy birthday, everybody.
Nathaniel, no.
Not Nathaniel, sorry, Daryl.
Daryl starts getting
Sorry,
jealous.
I was thinking of the part when he's walking up the elevator. But yeah, so Daryl starts getting very jealous over the fact that Burt is now the father figure of the office.
Right. The only thing that I liked about this whole storyline was that Maya gets to talk. I think Maya's such a great character. I think she's hilarious at what they give her or whatnot. But otherwise, yeah, I feel like it was a throwaway scene to me. I don't think I needed it to be there much.
I liked it.
Storylines.
I liked the conflict. I thought it was funny. I thought it played out well. I don't know if sure it was filler, but it was a good form of filler. It was something to take away from the monotony of the cat songs that kept popping up. And I liked how it played out. I liked when Danny Jollis's character was like, "This is like a divorce."
Oh,
and
was that George? Is that who plays George?
Yeah, George.
George. Okay, yeah, I like him.
Yeah, so I mean, I did appreciate that for the fact that I did, again, not love the storyline as much. And it wasn't necessarily even because it was filler for me. That's just Daryl, I feel, is this very elated, happy character. And I get the reasoning as to why they did this with him. But I think having this be his first back introduction into the office was not what I wanted.
But I could see that coming off, hey, you were like the happy, spunky inspiration. Then you come back and everyone's found their other father figure and it's someone else and he gets jealous. So now we realize that Daryl's a regular person too. Like he's a normal person.
I get it. It wasn't what I wanted.
And then it also allowed them to bring back Father Bra. And
that was the favorite part of this whole thing. But I also felt with Paula, like that wasn't something I needed. It didn't seem to fit. And I read this in an article too, that it didn't fit Paula's character to be on this whole team. Like it would make more sense for her to go and be with Rebekah in this episode, because she's kind of always against any kind of work environment and team up meetings and stuff. She's very secluded from the rest of her
But she needed to be the
coworkers.
voice of reason, right? So she was the voice of reason when they were getting to a fight. She's the reason that they got Father Bra.
She was the
involved.
mom.
And what also is nice that Paula was there because there was no Heather, and that's what made me not like this episode, because I love Heather. There was no Heather to be found. But I can understand why people think that character play with Paula didn't work. But I think it did. I think it showed her growth. We're seeing every character is kind of growing, right? And so coming off, Paula's kind of transforming. She's lost some things, and now she's trying to find maybe a second family. She was preoccupied before, and now she's not. And then you see everyone's just growing, and of course you see like Nathaniel being nicer. It just everyone has a different dynamic.
The arcs are changing, and there's more growth into the character, which is what we wanted in the beginning, where we wanted them to deep dive a little bit more into the characters and whatnot. But I do appreciate Paula in this light, because it gave her that step away of her being crazy and dominant and trying to fix everything for Rebekah, and Rebekah had to deal with everything on her own at this point because there was no text.
What she did last time.
Right. And she's growing as well, and it's still progressing to this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like Paula in that. But like I said, Maya is still my favorite part of that whole.
Well, moving forward onto it, we get because
what
of
was
Maya.
your favorite part? Maya,
just her character.
Was no one else's favorite part? I'm a priest. I'm a Capricorn.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
that's
exactly what I'm talking
But
about.
with Maya moving forward with her, so
Hilarious.
she kind of is the divide between the two, because out of everyone in the office, I think Daryl has had negative altercations, but Maya is always the one that's looked up to him. So I think that really spurns it, because she has that whole thing where she has to choose between the two. She ends up choosing the wine night, which we then get to. Daryl comes in, very much still this divorced parent feel of like, I'm going to buy all these people except for Burt presents.
Well,
just
he
to show
got
you.
Burt a present. It was a bag of dirt.
A bag of, which actually he
Like
liked.
it's like a pet rock, because Burt's just that guy. It's like, this will go with my pet sand.
I actually really loved, though, the idea of like, hey, let's have a night where we drink wine and complain about things in the office and have them fixed.
It was
The
such a
wine
good
night.
name.
Right.
Wine with wine?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I feel like that's something I would transfer over to my real life.
Something
Right?
I would create an app for. This is like wine with wine. It's
Better write that
brilliant.
down, and
But Daryl then offers Disneyland tickets, which is the overall, everyone goes with him.
Especially
Right.
since
First
the
left
price just
alone.
went up. So
Well, this was the part that confused me. I'm like, isn't this Saturday night?
doesn't matter. Disneyland
Closes.
is always open.
No, false.
well, during the holidays, because the season's going.
It's still only open until midnight.
I mean,
And so by the time, I mean, I know they're closer to Anaheim than
Wine
we are.
with wine started at 7. They could have made it.
No, they could have made it, but that's still just a lot of money to pay for a couple hours.
I mean, he's trying to buy his love.
True.
You know.
The car's ready. Come downstairs.
But then that spurns now some more discord between him and Burt, and it ends up in a fight, and we get the Father Brow scene where he has to then
Come in
kind
and,
of mediate between them and come up with a healthy resolution. This was my favorite part of this whole storyline, and it wasn't even necessarily for the storyline of them making up, which I think you said as well, but it was for the little kind of throw-ins like the Capricorn, but also them going back to the Tony Awards with Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh yeah, the MPH
The,
situation.
With
the
him-
little
Yeah.
hat. Who was the lady
Yeah,
with the little,
yeah, because he
little
made
top hat?
yeah, because he made fun of her and didn't know who she was, but he did know who she was. He just forgot who she was.
Who was she?
Rebecca, Rachel
No,
Bloom,
The little top hat.
Rachel Bloom.
That's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice little throw out. They were like, "Hey, by the way, we're not gonna let this go quite yet."
Yeah, it was just cute. It was
Yeah,
the
it was cute.
concept. I also like the line "Everything I ever wanted, but nothing I needed" when George said that. And Diana
yeah.
Jala said
Right.
that like about his parents. It's just a good bar.
And then he runs away.
Yeah.
I also liked the fact that Father Brock keeps being like, it's a difference. You don't need to get personal in your work life. It's a professional area, and they're like, "I'm the dad," and they're like,
I'm the
Oh.
papa.
maybe you don't, but still, this is Daryl and now Burt. They're never gonna just be
Which one do
your
you guys
boss.
choose?
Daryl.
Whoa! You wanted to think about that a little?
Daryl's my favorite character on the show. Of course, I picked Daryl.
I
Okay.
go with Daryl too. I mean,
I feel like Tehran likes Burt better.
I don't mind Burt. I enjoy Burt. Burt seems cool. You know.
Seems like someone you would hang out with.
Burt, I don't, particularly don't think I would hang out with most of the people on the show. I think I would hang out with Heather.
oh,
That's
that's it.
And that seems to be the end of my. There are people I might be cooler with. I think that I'm more of a Nathaniel in life. Maybe I feel a little Nathanielness. I think that there's also a Valencia thing I have going. I kind of like
A little bit of a
Valencia.
Heather with a little bit of sprinkle Valencia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, moving on to Rebekah's storyline, which we get. Rebekah, and this is where the whole cats thing comes in. Rebekah has not gotten laid in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And she is trying to go through porn, but she keeps focusing on her exes.
Can we talk about She Smash, or is this
Sure. She smashes her.
porn for feminists? That was brilliant. Like 3 men at the same time. Ass is her right.
That was my favorite line of that part was, "As is her right."
Yeah.
But yeah, she's going to this feminist porn website. It doesn't work out well for her. She can't focus on the right things. She's still focusing on Greg, Josh, and Nathaniel, which makes sense, especially with Josh because she lives with him.
Right, and he's walking around in his
He's
underwear.
walking around in his underwear the entire episode.
Right.
And
And panties. His panties.
Yep. Panties. There you go.
I would say
Yeah.
tighty whities, but they were black. I don't know what you call them at that point. Still tighty whities?
Panties.
Panties. And then she kind of decides, I'm going to go back on this date because it turns out that Jason, who canceled on her last minute, wasn't lying and
Right.
has showed her through lots of photos that he actually was sick. And so she's
Yeah.
going to set this
selfie
back
while I
up.
poop, selfie while I throw up, just to let you know I still
Several.
really like you. Several. Yeah.
Pooping in a trash can.
In
Right.
public.
In
In
public.
public.
That changes the dynamic.
Right.
That says nothing says I'm sick more than pooping in a trash can in public. Either I'm sick or homeless. It could go either way. So
Maybe both.
very cool.
But yeah, so they go out on this date. But to get ready for her date, she's been working out, wearing cheap leggings,
And spinning her life away.
and with a callback to I got a UTI with
Right.
where she has the spin class, she now gets a yeast infection and has to leave the date because the entire purpose of the date, let's not be fooled, it's to get laid,
Right.
nothing else. Like maybe this could be a relationship, but at this moment, that's not what she's looking at. She wants to get laid. Can't get laid with a yeast infection.
As is her right.
As is her right. So how do you guys feel she handled the yeast infection situation?
I will say this. I am very impressed that the show handled the yeast infection, period. Most, and this goes once again to Bloom and her creativity, and more importantly, her willingness to tackle subjects that a lot of people find taboo. We've seen shows about AIDS. We've seen shows about STDs, but we never see the yeast infection, the lone soldier of the vaginal world.
It just never gets that gritty, right?
It never comes up. It really doesn't. They play it.
Like maybe in Sex and the City, but it's not handled in the same way, and it's a very throwaway thing.
No, and it's not on at Friday nights at 9 p.m. on the CW or on a network like that. So for them to be able to do that, and for them to hit those boundaries as much as they can or as far as they can, I gotta commend them, because
Big time.
What other network is going into that nitty gritty or those situations that people don't necessarily talk about?
Well, in the same way that I felt about the UTI song in season 1, I felt about them handling this, because as a woman, it's something that doesn't get talked about, and I think when young girls maybe have this for the first time, they don't know what's going on.
Right.
So I like that they kind of put this out there to be like, this is what's happening with your body, and it's not something weird. It's not something abnormal. It's just your pH level balances. It's you growing a little bit of something down there. You can easily take care of it. And because as a woman too, it's certain womanly bodily functions are viewed as like everybody gets very uptight and weirded out when you want to talk about it, even your period,
which happens once a month. It's like
and like I there was like a time for me, even like when I was just trying to find some Midol because I was having some cramping situations, and like every guy was like and they didn't want to like talk about it, they didn't know what to do, they got very uncomfortable. I'm like, you guys talk about pooping, farting,
dick and balls every day,
scratching your nuts,
100%.
And
100%.
It's completely fine, but I mentioned that I have cramps and you can't handle it.
The birthing process, guys, and even the fact that they brought up bacterial vaginosis, which is the odor, right? That concept. I just thought it was very commendable. I liked the fact that they even spoke on these things. They normalized it. They normalized the situation of a woman going through this process and then overcompensating. Like, even it's not like all women are experts on everything. No.
Right.
They're not. So we see someone who overcompensates, which would happen, which is a very normal thing. And someone will grab the 3-day yeast infection medicine, even though we all know the 7-day one, or we should know that the 7-day one.
Well, she didn't even grab the 3-day one. She just doubled up on the 7-day one.
On the 7-day one and the antifungal one, right?
Yes.
So I think that they didn't use a brand name because of the brand name. We're also used to just Monistat, right?
Yeah.
Monistat.
And there's plenty of over-the-counter medications that can help, and like you said, you try it, and if it doesn't go away, then you do need to see a doctor, because it could be something more severe, in which this case, because of her just trying so hard to get rid of it in 3 days.
Trying so many things at the same time simultaneously, which is another thing, is sometimes we don't realize that when we're using things and creams and ointments, there are chemicals. And so when you mix and match, those chemicals might not get along. And in this case, it just simply was a case of bacterial vaginosis, which is a simple thing to remedy in most cases. But sometimes it can cause chemical burns. It can cause further infections. It can cause a damage of whatever natural system you have.
Well, like they said, her pH balance got thrown off.
Yeah.
Her body wasn't in sync with itself, and so it was producing this smell. And even I read an article which I liked what they said, because they were bringing up the fish smell, and they said that they liked how they did it because it wasn't necessarily making fun of Rebekah. It was making fun of the fact that this guy couldn't tell the difference and didn't know what he was smelling, and kept like trying to figure out what fish it was. So it was still not shaming Rebekah and her smell. It was just like, oh, this could be trout. No, it's not that. Which I thought was kind of a cool thing.
River fish.
Not a river fish.
Definitely not a river fish.
But it is a natural occurrence, and so I'm glad they did bring it to light, and they did it in a comedic way. And I'm glad that when she finally did tell Jason, that they had him be on board with it and be like, oh yeah, my mom's a guy now. I'm glad that they didn't have him be grossed out by it or weirded out.
Right.
Which would have been the, I think, easy, normal way to go.
It would have been definitely the low-hanging fruit, and they did not take that. My mom's a guy now. It's like, oh, even better. Look, he's a dream. Let's have sex with him.
And he was like, let's continue the day. Just wear, thick sweatpants.
And I'll bring some spray.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. And the Valencia's there throughout the entire thing to kind of be I think Valencia's the voice of normal woman reason, where she's like, maybe I wouldn't say it this way. It is a natural thing, but maybe you don't need to like tell exactly what's going on to the guy that's potentially going to hook up with you. Right. It worked out for Rebekah in the end, which is also I'm glad Valencia.
But did it?
Well, not in the end, but in the end of that, of telling him about it.
It was working out for her. And
It was working out for her.
situations.
Which leads us to Nathaniel and Greg. So Greg has been trying to not think about Rebekah. Mm-hmm. You know, because she hooked up with his dad. Makes sense.
She slept with his dad. Rebekah had sex
In my
with
verbiage,
his
hooked up
father.
means sex.
I just want to make sure we all know that Rebekah's wrong, okay?
Yes.
I just want to make sure it's his father.
His father is also in the wrong.
His father
It's definitely...
may or may not be in the wrong. Rebekah's in the wrong. And I'll tell you why I feel this way. Because we see the father may or may not want a continuing relationship with the son, okay? So I'm not saying Rebekah's in the wrong for sleeping with someone. That's what not my problem is. My problem is when someone does something and is abashed by the consequence of that action, where they're just like shocked, like something negative happened by something that they did. That's why. So Rebekah wants something, which is Greg, and then is upset. Almost that Greg is upset at her. It's almost.
I don't think that she is upset that he's upset with her. I think she thinks that's reasonable for him to be. And I think
Sure, but
I also don't think. I think his dad does want. I don't think that there was ever a question if his dad did or didn't want a relationship with him.
There was a time where it was a rocky relationship. He was drinking. He was an alcoholic. He was going through things. He's making amends because he's going through the programs, and so because he went through the program, now he's making amends. What I'm saying with Rebekah is, if you remember during the episode where she was afraid to tell him or not, that's because she was like, oh, there's a consequence to an action that I did.
Yeah, but I think once she told him, she wasn't mad at him for having the reaction he had.
I mean, she couldn't be, but she still wished it just didn't happen,
Well, yeah,
right?
I mean,
She
that's
wished it was
normal
easy. But
human nature.
And that's the thing. That's the thing I always have a problem with, is when people normally like, I did something wrong and I just wish nothing came of it. No, that's not how it works.
It's not how it works, but I think it's normal human nature to have that feeling.
Right, and I still think, going back to his relationship with his father, I think although they've gone through so many things, there have been episodes in past seasons where his father showed that he's always going to love Greg. They just have differences or whatnot. So I still think his father has some...
He slept with Rebekah.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
But that's why I'm saying his father's still in the wrong as much as she's in
right.
the wrong.
I feel like they're both wrong in that situation. I think
Yeah, but I haven't
let him
seen the
go.
father's reaction, so I don't know if the father slept with Rebekah knowing it was wrong, and then it's like, oh man, what I did was wrong, right? The fact that they didn't tell him right away lets me know that neither one of them were actually mindful of the consequence. And when it comes to Rebekah, this is something that she wants, and so I'm looking at it from the perspective, because I'm being told the storyline from Rebekah's perspective. I don't know what amends that the father's doing. I know Rebekah's done nothing.
Okay, that's fair. But moving back to...
Make up for it. Like, bring me flowers.
But moving back into what we're talking about, because we're running out of time here, is Nathaniel then befriends Greg at the gym, because White Joe brings Greg to the gym, and they're working out, and he kind of makes this friend. And then White Joe doesn't want to tell them that they both share a
'cause
similar
he's
ex, because they have difficulties making friends.
Right, and he's
Eskimo bro.
he's put in a weird situation where he's trying to, and every time he tries to, something goes wrong. Obviously, right? That's how the story is going to go, or whatnot. But like, how would you feel if you were in the middle of that situation? Would you go straight right away and say, "Hey, this is blah blah, and this is blah blah blah, and this is how you're connected"?
No.
Or would you act like Y Joe? Like,
I would bring it up to each one individually.
Yeah.
Separately, right?
Yeah, separately.
Right.
Like he's
But he
friends
could
with
have
them.
he could have done that with Greg from the get-go, and he chose not to.
Right, because every time he was trying to talk to them, it was always with them two together,
I don't think that
No.
he ever tried to talk to them. I think he just didn't want
or
to.
from afar. Yeah,
Actually, no, because Greg was by himself at the
Yeah, that's
at
what
the
I'm
little
he never-
bar,
and he never-
could have done it, and then he
but he
chickened out.
didn't,
He
right.
kept checking out.
Yeah, he kept checking out. He just was too nervous to tell them.
And told everyone else.
Yes.
Which
Well,
also I
not
didn't like
everyone
that-
else. He told his boyfriend.
He kind of talked about it. Like, he kind of brought it, like the guy who was just working out for no reason.
Oh, yeah. that
I mean,
guy.
he just kept bringing it
That's
like,
not everyone.
all the
Danny.
time. But, and I didn't even like the fact that Greg told other people about what Rebekah did either. Like, that's really no one's business either. Like, I just like the fact that White Joe was involved. I don't know.
I don't know. You vent to your
Personal
friends,
life.
though.
you vent to your friends when things happen.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I think that's normal. And then White Joe kind of convinced himself this isn't going to be an issue if they're just friends. But then Greg wants to reopen his dad's restaurant, but can't because of zoning laws. Here's Nathaniel, real estate agent, loyal,
Who's
snide
nice
agent,
now.
who's nice now and rich. and he's gonna help him out for a beer. And then that's when it's like really an issue. They go to a bar and they kind of convince each other to talk to their exes, not knowing it's the same ex.
I need lawyer friends like that who just
Help
buy
you.
me a beer. It's fine. I'll look over your contracts.
Maybe one day.
One day.
But so then they both wind up at Rebekah's house with White Josh, but too late. They have figured out who each other are. And they're kind of, Greg seems just mad at himself. Nathaniel doesn't seem to know what he wants at that moment. Later on, I think he's like, both of them are just done. But here's the part where Rebekah comes out, and she's done nothing wrong at this point, which she states later, but now everything gets ruined for her because these three guys are standing there together.
It's like
again.
karma catching up to her all in one area.
What's the karma, though? See, and this is another thing I think we need to discuss is the concept that guys feel this way as if I'm the only person that has been with this girl. Like, we do realize, especially if you live in a town, like a smaller town, there's a chance that your girlfriend was someone else's girlfriend, and that doesn't make her any lesser or more your girlfriend. It just...
But you asked me what the karma was?
Yeah.
The karma was the whole couple seasons of just her doing what she was doing, lying to them, trying to manipulate the situation. Blah,
I don't see that as bad as everyone else. I just want her to understand when there's a consequence, this is what happens. Other than that,
Yeah, I think the
That,
point
to me,
they were
is
trying
human
to
nature.
I think
Shoot
that
your
the
shot.
thing that they're trying to show at this moment is that this is one of the few times she actually hasn't done something wrong, but she's still paying for it at the end of it. And it's because these guys aren't over her, except for maybe Josh. I don't know what Josh thinks ever. I don't know if there's any thoughts going on. Is that he's just fighting cats with a tennis racket.
Well, I feel Josh is over her. I think it's just a
Nathaniel
pure
and Greg.
physical thing with Josh. He's still Josh. Like Valencia brings up, he's still Josh. He's still good looking. He's still
But he
fine.
fine.
Yeah, but he's fine. Exactly. But he's fine. That's it. So Josh is just a physical...
But because of all this,
attractive person.
Jason also leaves and won't text her back because yeast infection's not breaking a point. Puking in a toilet and pooping in a trash can's not breaking the point, but three X's.
Well, it's just drama, right? You don't want to be around like every second. And Greg brings that up. Anytime I'm around Rebekah, this kind of stuff happens. There just seems to be an exuberant amount of drama when Rebekah's involved.
True. And then my favorite part of the episode is what we were talking about earlier was in the Nathaniel Greg storyline, we get a lot of the women you can't say things like
Are
that
the
anymore.
future. Women are the future. I just love that.
And then the turning point,
are
though,
equal in every way.
You can't live with them. What was the line? You can't live with them. You can't.
No, he just says
he
you
didn't
can't
say
say
it, but
any
the
artist.
normal line is you can't live with them, can't live without them. But then that's turned back around when Rebekah says men can't live with them, can't kill them, and she's like, we can say that now. We have that right, as is her right. So the whole feminist kind of thing turns on that, which is my favorite part of this episode was those kind of like little undertones that they were showing.
Everyone has a form of privilege.
So let's move into some of our special segments, unless you have anything else that you want to add on the story that happened in this episode.
Good to go.
Okay.
I'm good.
So I'm just going to combine the songs as a whole because we don't have them and they kind of all just were there.
They were just one song.
Right.
Yeah. So we have, I do want to point out the guest stars in this though, because we do have Hungry Cat was the first one, which is played by Ricky Lindholm. And then we got Itchy Cat, played by Fred Armisen.
Right.
And then we have Funky Cat, played by Todrick Hall. Then we have Elated Cat or Rainbow Cat, played by Rebekah Johnson. And last we get Nostalgia Cat, played by Megan Amram. Mm-hmm. All of these relate back to the show Cats in one way or another, and I could go more into it, but I don't want to.
Thank you.
So they did a great job. I liked that they brought these in, and I kept thinking, I was like, is that Fred Armisen? Because I was going in between thinking, are they using other people from the show and dressing them up? And then I was like, or is
I didn't see that, so I had to look at that.
And I looked it up, yeah.
But yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool that they at least brought in those. And Todrick Hall is a great person to bring in because he is a Broadway person and a performance person. The dancing was probably my favorite part of the songs.
It was good. They actually, the dog that came in was Jack Dolgen. He co-writes some of the songs on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend along with Bloom. But he was that little rapping dog that was in there for 0.2 seconds.
But yeah, I mean, it was fun. It did what it was supposed to do, which was related back to the musical Cats and show that Cats would be better as a musical review. A musical dance review and not a show that has a storyline.
I think Cats is the best show Broadway's ever produced ever.
You're entitled to have that.
I said that.
But yeah,
Take that sound.
that
out,
was
guys.
so. Those were pretty much all of our songs. Was everything relating into that Cats, and then the Cats come back at the end of it, choosing who they want Rebekah to be. I think each taking on a different fan from the fan base,
Right.
except for maybe Marco.
Who
I don't know if
took
anyone
who
wants
took Greg for
Marco and
you?
her together.
I like Marco.
Huh?
Who said Greg was her favorite? Do you
The
remember?
rainbow one.
Rainbow Cat.
Elated.
Gotcha.
Elated.
Cat.
A lady cat. Rebekah Johnson. Okay.
So let's move on to our second segment, the Rebekah Bunch Crazy Meter.
Oh, crazy.
Don't mind if I do.
So this is the part of the show where we go through and we rate Rebekah on a scale of 1 to 10 on how crazy she was this episode. Tehran, start us off.
I'm going to go with a 4.
Okay.
I'm going to give her a strong 4. This is the craziest she's been in a little while. I give it a little bit because of the stir crazy of the horniness. I'm going to add in a sprinkle of her yeast infection insanity. And then I'm going to say she actually handled all the guys being at the house at the same time extremely well, bringing it right back down to a nice 4.
Nice. I'm gonna go with a 3.5. Just to
This
be a
isn't
little
Price is
different.
Right. You don't
Just
have
a little- we're gonna go with a 3.5. All right. Just for the yeast infection situation. Other than that, everything else was pretty good on her end as far as how she's dealing with being sick and just dealing with her life in general. There was nothing too crazy
Salt trip?
about it.
Salt trip? No.
Yeah, I'm going to give her a 2. I think that she was actually very tame this episode.
This is a
Yeah.
2 to you?
This is a 2 to me.
I mean, from all the other things she's done,
Because the only crazy parts to me was the fact that she even like made up the stupid lie in the first place. Like, just get through your date. You don't have to sleep with them that night. Set up another date.
yeah.
And then also the like,
How about the fact that she was okay with poop and barf pictures? Are we not going to include that in? That's not crazy?
okay, so I'll push it up to a 3.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But yeah, she was pretty tame this episode.
That's my 0.5. See.
And actually, the guys were a little more crazy than her this episode for being so weird about like finding out that they were each other's.
I don't think so, that it's crazy of them to think that way. I'm just saying this is something that we need to speak about as society. It's not crazy for a guy to, now we're talking about human nature, it's very human nature to be possessive. That's,
No, I'm not saying so. I'm saying they were
Yeah.
being a little. If we're comparing, to me, they were a little bit more extra than her this episode.
I think what made them crazy is the fact instead of just calling, hey, I'm thinking about you, or texting, they showed up at her house out of nowhere. That's kind of crazy.
and getting kind of upset with her for having another guy there, and in a little bit of a way, it seems like.
You've never been a guy. The same way I don't know what
True.
it's like to have
True.
a yeast infection. Well, guys can get yeast
Guys
infections.
can get yeast
but
infections and UTIs.
I haven't
Just
gotten one.
less
thank
regular.
goodness. Yeah.
So let's really quickly. I know we are out of time. Just do you want to really quickly just talk about
yeah.
the news and gossip? Just in less than a minute.
Real quick.
TV News.
Shout out to Advocate Magazine for putting Vincent Rodriguez, who plays Josh Chan, on the cover alongside Jake Choi and Nico Santos. These are 3 Asian American actors that were on the cover of the Advocate Magazine. You see it on the screen over there. That's great. I mean, that just goes to show you within Hollywood and how much, especially with the Emmys these past couple of weeks, with Darren Criss winning for Best Actor in a Limited Series, you could see kind of how progressive things are starting and Sandra Oh starting to become in Hollywood. We still have a long way to go, but it's great to see them on the cover. And then Rachel Bloom is currently at the Critics' Choice Award. She's nominated for Best Actress in a Comedy Series for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. That's a picture of her parents right there with her, who are her dates tonight at the Critics' Choice
That's
Awards.
cute.
So that's cute.
I don't think we have a long way to go. I think we're there. Diversity's done. Guys, we don't need any more.
Let's just stop it right there.
So good luck.
Let's just stop it right there.
Good luck to Rachel tonight.
Right.
We're sending our thoughts out to you because I believe it's happening at this exact moment. I
Yeah.
don't know if we have that.
I tried to look to see if
yet.
if the winners have been announced, but I had seen nothing yet on social media. So.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eyes
luck
and
to her.
ears open. Unfortunately, that does it for today. We can post our predictions for you guys in the comments below if you are interested in
At this
doing
point, I
that.
have no predictions.
No predictions?
I mean, it's kind of
I
like,
predict it's going to end on January. What is it? February 14th.
yeah, that's basically.
It's not going to end up
It's
February
not.
14th, though.
It's not. The prediction is we don't know what to predict because it hasn't. I keep thinking it's going to get into the meat of the show, and it hasn't. So
Well, we will have to wait and see. But until next week, when we have more to talk about, where can they find you guys?
at I am Tehran all across the board, at IAMTEHRAN. Find me, show me some love. I might follow you back.
And it's your boy Nino Llanera on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, all the good stuff. Find me. Let's talk, guys.
And you can find me at BRI_Phipps, PHIPPS on Twitter and Instagram. Find me if you want to talk about my favorite musicals, or if you want to complain about cats, I'm there for you. And until next week, we will see you all then.
Bye, guys.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.